speaker in the Philippines where I met her last year. What she brings to the table and what she does is definitely no limitation. Because Mary Ann Thompson-Frenk is a 4x4. She's a trailblazer, and she brings it out with gumption, and she brings it out the best way she can. And I want to bring you in, my sweetheart, today, just to thank God that in another continent, we are together again. And why don't you bring her in with a great hand of applause? Marianne, come on. Marianne Thompson. She's in cowboy style. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, it's incredible to be here. Actually, it's incredible any time I'm blessed to be around Caroline Makaka. You know why? Because she loops in the world. No one says no to Caroline. If she says, will you come over to the Philippines? You say, yes, ma'am. And that's something we do here in Texas a lot. You probably noticed my train. My father, actually, he went off to London a long time ago to make a negotiation on behalf of his business. And he walked in and he talked like this, but he had a real deep Southern voice. And he called my mom up the next day and he said, you know what? Everyone in that room thought I was stupid. And it worked. And I walked away with everything I wanted. Real good. Well, you know, the reason why I share that is because where we get in trouble as human beings is in our assumptions. And sometimes it's to your advantage not to correct an assumption. I know there are a lot of women here, and you walk in, and here in Texas, people say, it's okay, little lady, I'll take care of that. And sometimes, okay, please do so. And other times, when they say, don't worry, pretty little head, that's when you go, oh, I better worry now. And navigating this world, we have so many different kinds of labels on us. Are you a woman? Are you a woman of color? Are you a man? Are you a man that's misogynistic because you seemed a little too condescending? Or are you a man that gave a compliment to a woman because you were being nice? Which one is it? There's a lot of landmines, regardless of what demographic you belong to. And all of us are navigating these landmines every day. Well, the one thing that we all have in ourselves that can help us with that is empathy. Empathy, most people think, oh, I'm dealing with my own problems, I got too much to deal with right now. But the truth is that empathy is your biggest power source. Let me say that again. Empathy is your biggest power source. Now, I'm not just saying this because I happen to enjoy, meeting different kinds of people around the world, and I think, oh, it's nice to kind of get to know them. No. If I was a sociopath that only cared about my own interest, empathy would still be my biggest power source. And the reason is because if you want to play chess and you want to do it well, then you can't look at the board the way you wish it were. You have to look at the board the way it is. And that means really understanding what the other is seeing, really understanding what the other is feeling. Someone that you completely hate. So I'm gonna just right now we're in the Bible Belt, and unfortunately, in my opinion, we have a group in the United States called the Proud Boys. Now, I've interacted because I work with everybody doing the work that I do. And I got to meet some of these cell groups, and I thought, the real easy thing to do is just to lash out. Who do you think I am? I'm not an infestation. But instead, what I needed to do is understand why. And I said, talk to me. Explain to me how you're feeling. And I realized almost right away, there was immediate confusion in the eyes, because they're looking at me going, this girl has melanin, and she's asking me how I feel. She's not supposed to care how I feel. Immediately expressing an interest turned their world upside down. It was really important to express an interest in an authentic way. It couldn't seem like it was being sarcastic. It had to seem like I cared. I needed to get to the heart of it. And when I started hearing behind the reaction was, here is a man that grew up in a very challenging economic situation. His whole life he was told, you have a privilege because of your skin color, but nothing ever helped him get ahead. And he was isolated, and then people around him started saying the reason you can't get ahead is because of those people, and they were those people whom he had never met or interacted with in his life. So he trusted the face of people on the news that said, you should hate those people, because the people on the TV looked like him. So he thought, okay, I can trust that. And I had to step outside myself and say, if I had never been me, if I had been brought up in a poor, struggling economic environment and couldn't get a leg up, and I kept seeing all these other people get a scholarship because they're a woman or a different color skin, I might really believe that I should hate those people. So stepping outside myself and trying to understand, that doesn't mean that I agree. It didn't mean that I agree and I don't agree with anything that he was trying to push forward. But what it allowed me to do is to connect. And I was able to say, well, I think that you're dealing with some real challenges. I think those are valid concerns. Everybody in this world wants to have a roof over their head, food on their table. They want to have hope. They want to believe that there's a possibility for that next generation to be able to aspire further. And he nodded, yes, absolutely. I said, well, that's something that, believe me, I've been around the world, and that's something that every human being should care about. Because if we all cared about it, if we all looked at the other person and said, they are as passionate about this issue, which I am absolutely opposed to, but they're as passionate on their side as I am, because at the root they care about the country and their relationship to spirit just as passionately as I do. So if I could step outside of myself and go, forget the argument, forget the sides, the reason why they're pushing us hard is for the same thing. The desire to survive, desire to have opportunity, desire to make our community grow in a positive direction, desire to empower next generations. And I went, this is something that we can agree on. How can we work together to try and help lift each other up? And I saw something come on in his eyes. It's like, oh, yeah, let's talk about that. And he was open. Now, it's going to take time in our country here in the United States, and right now I'm speaking to you, for those of you that see this on video, from Texas, which is the Bible Belt of America. And if you know anything about the Bible Belt of America, you know that after the Civil War, one of the things that Abraham Lincoln wrote, and many people don't realize this, he had a letter that he wrote to people, and he said that unless the North invested as much in the South as they could to help rebuild it, this whole sociological problem would basically come back in 100 years. Well, he was right. He was a prophet. Because we didn't try and address that. And you think we would have learned. I have an amazing friend of mine named Joanne Herring. She was an ambassador and she would go to Pakistan, and she would go undercover wearing a burqa and walk in Afghanistan and try to understand things. And she recommended to the United States that time two things. You got to worry about the Taliban, and the second thing, you need help rebuild their country. They didn't do the second, and we saw what happened with 9/11. But when you look at World War II, if you know anything about your history, after World War I, people had a choice. They could help rebuild Germany, or they could punish them. As we all saw, we got World War II out of it. One of the hardest things to do as human beings is to reach across to our enemy and recognize it is an investment in the long-term peace of our species. Because if you want to keep pushing down and you want to stop them from going up because their grandfather hurt your grandfather and their great-grandfather hurt your grandfather, it never ends and everybody loses. So right now, if you're a humanitarian, and I talk about using two different tools. I talk about using for-profit, I talk about using non-profit means, but all of it, whether it's activism, social responsible investing, conscious capitalism, or philanthropy, any of those tools and all of them are absolutely necessary. You have to take marching in the streets to Wall Street where nothing happens. You can try and move things on Wall Street, but if the activist isn't speaking out, no one's held accountable. You can do philanthropy all day long, but that doesn't help the future. Last year, the Mimsy Institute, one of my nonprofit organization I began with my husband and I, we worked with a friend of ours named Manuel Job. We got 160 families out of the war zone in Sudan into South Sudan. But now you have 160 families just sitting on the ground somewhere in South Sudan. Philanthropy is not realistic for their grandchildren. A social responsible investment is. These are the kinds of things that change the world. And every single one of you in this room is more empowered. And I say this every speech that I give anywhere in the world. Every single one of you in this room looking at your phone right now, yes, I see each of you looking at your phone. Every one of you has access to more knowledge than kings, queens, prime ministers, presidents had centuries before you. And every one of you has the ability to project your voice in ways they could have only dreamed. And if you are in this room and you are educated, you are living a life that your ancestors prayed and couldn't even imagine. So walking on this earth with all of that power, because it is power, and entering into a world of globalization where we are more interdependent with each other than ever before, environmentally, economically, and sociologically. We are affecting each other more than ever before. So each of you is a force that centuries of people couldn't have dreamed. And each of you is occupying a time and this very moment where the actions we take will shape and define our world for our species for centuries to come. What will you do about it? That is the question. Ask yourself tonight when you're brushing your teeth. Ask yourself the next time you're texting something to your friend. Ask yourself the next time you're on Instagram. Ask yourself the next time you see something on the news. Who are you to be quiet? Who are you not to speak out? Who are you as the most empowered person in a long line of people in your families to not be the leader they once dreamed of? You are that powerful. Embrace it, because if you ignore it, we let the world fall. If we embrace it and we stand together, we lift this world up into something that we haven't dared begin to imagine. Thank you.